Hi everyone, I'm Corey Bullock, CBC journalist based in Cranbrook, BC. Cranbrook has received the CBC with open arms. In fact, all of the communities across the Kootenays have been so receptive and open to sharing their stories. It's been a really rewarding experience so far. Sharing the stories of these smaller communities is important work. It allows people who might not otherwise be heard from to share their concerns, their unique perspectives, and their achievements with a much wider audience. It lets people know that they have a voice and that their communities matter. It's so rewarding to do this job and to document the stories that are happening here. Know that this could be the beginning of a very rewarding and fulfilling career, but it doesn't come without a lot of hard work. No 2 days are the same, initiative is a must, and some stories will challenge you. But you get to be creative, and you get to do a job that truly matters. It's all part of this wonderful and unique job. I am so proud to work for CBC and to be able to share the important stories that happen here in Cranbrook and the surrounding communities.
Hello, I'm pleased to welcome you to this session all about new job opportunities here at CBC News. You just heard there from Corey Bullock. She's one of our CBC journalists already working in one of our small bureaus in Cranbrook, BC, and we're going to talk about how CBC is hiring more jobs just like that. My name is Stephanie Coombs. I'm the Director of Journalism and Programming here in Edmonton, and that means I oversee all of our journalists and programming, all the content we create in Edmonton and Northern Alberta. I'm speaking to you today as I'm also overseeing the recruitment of these 30 new positions across the country we are here to talk about. It's an exciting time for CBC News, and we're extending our reach to serve more communities across the country. And we're looking for great people to join our team. So thank you for joining us today. During our time today, I will start by giving you a brief outline of the jobs available, what kinds of people we're looking for, and what you could expect if you're hired. But then we want to make sure that you get your questions answered. And so you can do that in one of two ways. You can comment here in the video. You need a YouTube account to do that. Or you can send your questions directly to newsjobs@cbc.ca if you prefer to remain anonymous or you don't have a YouTube account. Either way, we'll try to answer your questions, perhaps in the chat, or I'll answer them verbally. I have a team of folks helping me today, Justin and Haley and Jane, and they're behind the scenes taking your questions. So what's going on? Well, we're hiring up to 30 multi-platform journalists in 23 locations across the country. The majority of these are new. So a couple are existing locations, but the majority are new places that we currently do not have a CBC presence. These are permanent, full-time positions, and they are based in the communities that we're hiring. These communities are places that we think we need to better establish a footprint where we want to tell more stories and reach more people. And so we're doing information sessions like these because we want to get the word out as much as possible. So up there on your screen, you can see where are some of the jobs. They are across the country, 6 in BC, 9 across the prairies, 3 in Ontario, 2 in Quebec, and 1 each in the Northwest Territories, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. Most of these positions will be in solo bureaus. Just like Corey there, the video you saw, you would be the only CBC reporter in the area. But you'd have a team of people supporting you back at your home station. So all bureaus are attached to a home station. So for example, the bureau in Oshawa, the home station is Toronto. The bureau in Prince Albert, the home station is Saskatoon. We have a couple of exceptions. For example, we're hiring someone to be based in Yellowknife, where we actually have quite a big station, but their job will be to travel throughout the north to a lot of remote communities that we don't often get to. A couple of the bureaus will also have more than one person. We already have some existing bureaus, as you heard from Corey, and in some of those places, we're going to hire a second person. Some of those places are Nanaimo, Fort McMurray, and Lethbridge. One key thing that I'll mention today, and I'll probably say it a couple of times, is you need to work in the community. These are not remote jobs. This is critical for our goal to meet people where they are and tell the stories from the place that we're talking about. So what are the jobs going to be like? Well, you'll be working as a journalist covering news and current affairs from the community. You will report to your home station. That's generally who will handle the publishing of your content and the assigning of it first, and then the publishing of it. So for example, in Truro, Nova Scotia, the journalist there will report to the Halifax station, and the Halifax station will handle the publishing of their content on their programs and platforms. Your job will be to pitch story ideas, then research, gather, and produce those stories for all platforms. Sometimes one story will be some platforms, sometimes will be other. It's not all platforms every day. But among the places that we do publish content, we have digital, obviously our website and our app. We have social. Currently, we're on YouTube and TikTok. Audio, we have our radio newscasts, radio current affairs programs, and local podcasts. And visual, so we have TV newscasts and fast streaming. So your producer will be at your home station. And every day you'll check in with that person pitching your ideas, and you'll work together to decide what stories you'll tackle. That might be a story today, that might be a story that's going to take you a few days. You'll also be the first person to cover breaking news in your area, and you'll be expected to build and develop working relationships with community members. One of the questions I get asked most often is, what kinds of stories would I be expected to cover? We want to focus on stories that reflect the things happening in your community that would be of an interest and relevant to a provincial or a national audience. What are the things people are talking about? What are the issues that have them concerned? Or is there a major issue happening that has a different local focus in the area that you serve? So for example, some of the stories that our current Solo Bureau journalists have done recently, our reporter in Grand Prairie, Alberta, did a story about the potential impact of tariffs on honey producers. There's massive honey producers in Northern Alberta, and the tariffs that would be on this particular industry. Our reporter in Kingston did a story on a Belleville soup maker, sorry, not soap, a soup maker, who's seeing really exponential sales in the sort of Buy Canadian movement that we're seeing now. And both Corey in Cranbrook and our other reporter in Fort McMurray, Alberta, recently did stories about the affordable housing crisis and homelessness in their communities. So what kind of experience and qualities are we looking for in candidates? Really, we do want you to have some kind of daily multi-platform journalism experience. Doesn't necessarily have to be all the platforms, but really what we want is you to have a grounding in journalism experience, because you are going to be working on your own in a bureau, and your teammates will be remote. So we want you to feel confident in the craft of journalism. A familiarity with CBC and our programs and platforms would also be very helpful. But in terms of the kinds of people we're looking for, we are looking for people, and Corey mentioned this, with a lot of initiative. You need to be able to work independently, have good problem-solving skills, and be self-motivated. It would help if you've lived in a smaller community so that you understand sort of the dynamics of how different communities work. I'll pause to say that not all these locations are small communities. I mentioned Oshawa. We're also hiring into Abbotsford, Red Deer. These are big communities. But some of the places we're hiring, North Battleford, Lloydminster, these are smaller locations. Most importantly, you must love getting out of the newsroom, meeting new people. You must be curious. You have a lot of story ideas. You walk down the street and talk to people and come up with stories as you go. And we really want to hire people who really want to own something. You're going to own this expertise of being the reporter in Fort St. John, BC. You are going to be the person for CBC who knows the issues and concerns of that area. And that's an expertise. That's a beat that you're going to want to cultivate. You'll need to have great communication skills, because you'll be communicating a lot with your home station remotely, with all your producers and colleagues remotely. And you really need strong relationship building skills. As I mentioned off the top, in most of these locations, we do not currently have a CBC presence. So we will be looking to you to help us build relationships with people in those communities, to help us grow audience and meet new people. So you have to like getting out there to meet new people. So that's my brief, maybe not so brief, introduction to the positions. So we're going to turn to answering some questions. And as I mentioned, you can add them, as I see people have already been putting some comments in, adding some questions there, or emailing newsjobs@cbc.ca, and we'll try to get through all these questions. So I see the first one up is, can CBC sponsor work visas? At this moment, we are not doing so. I would encourage you to still apply, and to apply to our talent pipeline. And there's a link on our main website for this job, cbc.ca/work with us, which Justin will put up on the screen. And that's probably where you saw how to sign up for this session. Down at the bottom, there's a link of how you can join our talent community. At this moment, we are not sponsoring visas, but we always encourage people to apply and to connect with us, potentially about future opportunities. What is the range of compensation for the reporter position? Will there be a local studio, or would reporters be provided with equipment to work from home? Two excellent questions. I'll deal with the first. So most of the positions, and I will speak, you asked about Squamish, but let me answer that for everything, for all of the jobs. We have two unions that govern the work that our reporters and journalists do here at CBC. And so there are positions in both of those unions, CMG, which covers most of Canada, and STTRC, which covers Quebec and New Brunswick, where we have 3 jobs. In the CMG union, these are reporter editor positions, and so that would include the Squamish position. And the salary band is between $65,000 and $85,000 a year. That is the same salary band for the STTRC. The position is called journalist, but is about the same amount of compensation. That's the money compensation, but also we do have a pension plan and, of course, health and dental benefits. To the second part of your question, will there be a local studio? In the vast majority of these positions, there will be an office that we would like you to work from. This is not a work from home situation. As you saw there in the video with Corey, she was entering her office, and it is an office in a shared workspace. So we will be providing office space for all of these positions, and generally speaking, they are in a shared office building or a co-working space. We've previously had some staff work out of an office in a library or at a local university or post-secondary. What's important to us that you have a space to work from. It also allows you to meet people in the community, and they can see CBC is visible in the community. You will also be assigned a car, because you won't just be working out of that office, you'll be traveling around to the outskirts of your communities. Wow, we just segued right into the next question. What sort of equipment will be provided to the journalists? You'll be provided all the equipment that you need to do your jobs. So you'll be provided a car, a laptop, audio and video recording equipment, everything that you will need to do your job. You do not need to provide that yourself. Just wait till Justin gets the next question up. Yes, absolutely. You don't necessarily need to currently live in the community, but yes, you do need to be willing to relocate there. So it's not a detriment. Obviously, it would be an advantage to you to live in the community, because you probably would know immediately some more of the stories and issues that are at play. But if you're going to apply for a position, say you're interested in the position in Penticton, I'd encourage you to do your research on Penticton so that you're able to talk about those issues in your cover letter and in your application process. So no, it's not a detriment. It certainly would be an advantage, but absolutely we recognize that people will be applying from all over the country for different positions. It would be, do you need to have editing, audio, and video experience to edit your own work? We certainly will put, and maybe I'll use this opportunity, this question, to answer what's often a question is, what sort of training and onboarding will there be? They kind of go together. So when we bring new people into these bureaus, we have you come and work out of the home station for a few weeks. That's where we provide you with all of the training that you will need to be successful in the job, training on our different programs, on our workflows, and also where you get a chance to work closely with the people that you will be working remotely with. So get to know your colleagues and your teammates. So we will provide you with training on the systems and the workflows that we want you to do. It would be an advantage to have some experience in multi-platform. So you're asking about editing audio and video. That would be helpful, but you don't need it. We certainly can teach you, especially if you know how to use one program. We're happy to teach you how to use our programs, that sort of thing. We recognize that not everybody has all the platforms. You want it when you're applying. You want to tell us what your skills are and what what you're looking to learn. Will reporters be expected to appear on air if there's a big story happening in their particular jurisdiction? Likely, yes. If there is a breaking news story in your community, we will want you to be covering that breaking news story. And for us, that could be on air for radio or for television, for our streaming channels. It also could mean contributing into other stories that we're covering, you know, a digital story, that sort of thing. So yes, which may lead to a question, Maggie, you know, do I need on-air presentation skills? Again, that's helpful, but we also train people to be effective and at on-air work. So you don't need to have had that experience. Yes, you need to attach a cover letter. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to talk about best practices in applications. So if you're looking to apply for these jobs, yes, you need a cover letter, and you need to use that cover letter to talk about why you're applying for the particular jobs you're applying for. I like to think about a cover letter and a resume as doing two different things. Your cover letter should tell me why you're applying for the job you're interested in, what you're going to bring to that job. So that's an opportunity for you to show that you know the community or you know what CBC does. Your resume is an opportunity to show me what you've done before. So they kind of do two different things. So yes, a cover letter, absolutely. And you should attach a cover letter to every job you apply for. And then I would just segue to saying, people often ask about an interview. An interview is then an opportunity for us as the hiring team and you as the interviewee to get to know each other a bit better. Our goal in the interview is, because we've seen your cover letter and your resume, we know some stuff about you. What we're trying to find out in an interview is how you work. I've seen what you say you want to do. I've seen what you have done. And now the interview, we want to talk to you about how you work. How do you approach challenges? What happens when things go wrong? Talk to me about some of your successes. So each of these elements of a recruitment process accomplishes something different. So yes, cover letter, and think about what you're going to put in there that's going to tell me why you're a good person for that job. I think I've mentioned how much they pay. The average salary is between about 65 and 85,000. That's this pay scale depending on people's experience. Writing for print, I think you mean digital, but yes, it's all platforms. So digital, audio, visual, social, all of that, but not necessarily all of that on every story, but absolutely yes. Are you looking for someone with extensive work experience, or are you open to giving more opportunities to people of color who deserve a chance to grow and contribute? We are looking for everyone. So if you have some previous work experience and you want to take an opportunity to move to a smaller location, different pace of life, and this is your chance to step back and have some more autonomy in your work as a veteran journalist, absolutely. If you're an emerging journalist and you want to build and grow and develop your skills, and you want to try different things out and a chance to own something, then absolutely this is also a job for you. We want people from all experiences, all walks of life, to be working for us, because that's where we find we get the best stories. Would you be working specific hours with the exception of breaking news? Yes, generally. Generally, our bureau journalists work a Monday to Friday sort of day shift. I say generally because you note breaking news, absolutely, we can't control when that happens, but also perhaps maybe there's a big community event you want to attend on the Saturday, or a late city council sitting on a Thursday evening. You would work with your assignment producer to come up with, off shift yourself, take a different day off, or have a later shift so that you could cover those things that are happening in your community. Is it worth it to apply if you still need to pass a driving exam? Our expectation is that people have a driver's license, a valid Canadian driver's license, and can drive our cars. So I would say if you can pass your driving exam before March 31st when it closes, then sure. But we aren't going to be in a position of moving forward with candidates if you don't have a driver's license, because we can't wait for you to pass that exam. Do you pay for a move to be relocated to the place the job is available? No, we don't. We don't pay for relocation. But what we would pay for you is, for example, if you are based in Medicine Hat, your home station would be Calgary. So if you were based in Medicine Hat, we would start you out in the Calgary Bureau. And we would pay for you to stay in Calgary because that's not your home. That's not where you're permanently located. You are responsible for your accommodation in Medicine Hat, but we would pay for your transportation from Medicine Hat to Calgary, and you'd stay in Calgary for those 3 weeks, and we would cover the cost of that and have you go back. So we do pay for the travel between your bureau and the home station and staying in a accommodation in the main city, but we do not pay for relocation. Can we have input into the location of the co-working space where we will be based? That process is currently happening. As you can imagine, we are establishing locations and signing leases at the same time as we are looking for candidates. So probably not, but if you're in a community that you think has an amazing co-working space, pop us a note and we're happy to check that space out if you think it's somewhere we should be looking at. Can you provide a brief overview of the health and wellness benefit plan, vacation and sick policy? I don't have all the details of the health and wellness benefit plan at my fingertips. We can try to get that to you, Elizabeth. A vacation annual leave policy, new employees with CBC get 15 days of annual leave. That's the starting place is 15 days, and we do have sick days as well. They are not allocated out on a sort of 3 a year. So it's a bit of a different plan. We can follow up with you, Elizabeth, and get you some more specific information if you have a particular question. How soon will these positions start? And can you apply to work in more than one community, like your top 2 choices, for example? How soon will they start? Well, we are hiring 30, so that's a bit of a process that we need to get through. And there are, and why it's a bit of a process is to the second part of your question. We absolutely expect people will apply to more than one location. You can apply to as many locations as you wish, with the caveat that you must be willing to relocate there. That must actually be somewhere you do want to live and work. So yes, you can apply for multiple locations. That is why it'll take us a little bit of time to get through the recruitment process, because we will have people in multiple spots. Ideally, we're looking at having people in place in late spring, early summer, but it'll be a bit of a staggered approach. We aren't going to hire all 30 at the same time and they start on the same day. If there is breaking news at 2 a.m., for example, would you expect me to rush to that? I'm not necessarily, as your manager, going to know there's breaking news at 2 a.m. in your location. I'm not sure. I think it really depends on what the situation is. If there's a massive wildfire, I think about wildfires because I'm here in Edmonton. If there's a massive wildfire in your area, we probably are going to ask you to do something at an unusual hour, because that's a life situation, right? People's lives are in danger. Less breaking news, hey, we'd probably say, can you get there for 6? Because we've got morning programming that would be useful for. Must an applicant be a resident in Canada before applying? No, you do not need to be a resident of Canada to apply, but at this moment, you do need to legally be able to work in Canada, as we're not processing visas. Do you have any issues hiring older journalists? Absolutely not. We want people in our newsrooms and part of our news gathering process who represent a variety of backgrounds and experiences. So absolutely not. We're looking for people who are great journalists at whatever stage in their career they're at. Joined a little late. Are you hiring people looking for a career swap? People with no journalism background. That's challenging, I'll be honest, Yash. It's a bit challenging to do these jobs with no journalism. We're looking for people to have some kind of journalism background. You do need to have some experience in doing this kind of work, because it's hard to learn if you're in a remote remote situation, right? You're not connected and in the same station as your producers and your coach and mentor and that sort of thing. So yes, we are looking for people with journalistic experience. I'll say at this moment that sometimes I'm asked, do I need a journalism degree? And no, you do not. We do not require a journalism degree, but we often look for a mix of some kind of post-secondary and journalism experience. Will there be future opportunities for part-time or casual contract work to support these new bureaus? Certainly, that's a potential. Looking for people, additional people to work out of the bureaus on an as-needed basis. If you are an existing CBC employee doing casual or contract or part-time work, that would be easier. It's a little bit difficult, as I just sort of said. You are operating in a remote context, so you would, it would be a little bit difficult to maybe get people up to speed in terms of if you're only going to fill in for a week or two. But certainly, if the jobs become vacant, for a time, a term, maybe a leave, a maternity, parental leave, something like that, we do hire contracts behind those for sure. So I do have a couple of other questions that I think I'm going to move to Justin, if that's okay. He's the fellow putting the questions up that people have asked me, sent in before. So I'm just going to look at my list. I do have what is a typical day at CBC look for a journalist? And that's a difficult question to answer, but I'll do my very best. When we say a typical day in these jobs, somebody asked about breaking news at 2 a.m. Not typical, but could happen. You arrive to your office and you're going to check in with your assignment producer at your home station, and you're going to pitch to them. You're going to say, I have these ideas for these stories. This is what I think I could do today. This is maybe a story I think I could turn around today. This is maybe something that, do we want to work on something bigger? I could do this over the next couple of days. You're going to talk through the story with them. What are the elements you're going to gather? Who are you talking to? And then you'll talk about which platforms that should go on. Is this a radio story, a digital story, a visual story? And you'll make arrangements for how to gather the story based on that. You will then go out and leave your office and go gather that material that you need, and then package that material together. At times, you may be working with another journalist, might be assigned to work with you. Perhaps another solo bureau and you are working on a story together. Here in Alberta, our Grand Prairie and Fort McMurray journalists have been working on a story about a highway that's supposed to link their two communities. So then you might be working with another journalist, not next to you, sitting next to you, but on your team. You may also be working with someone, may be back at the home station helping you edit something or helping you with some kind of your content. They're going to take a piece of it to give you a hand. So that's kind of a typical day. But the thing I would stress is that we absolutely start with, we are looking for you to pitch the ideas. We want you to pitch ideas because you're in the community. Just scrolling down my list of other questions. Somebody did ask me about tips for an interview. How do you show your best self in an interview? And so I'll just mention what I said a little bit before, which was about the interview is a chance for us to get to know you, but also you to get to know us. And I always encourage people who, when you're being interviewed, I know it can be intimidating. Often at CBC, we have often three people on a panel for an interview. And that can be a bit intimidating, but encourage you to take some ownership of the interview as well. Sometimes people are worried, am I saying enough? Am I not saying too much? These are opportunities in the interview for you to say, I've answered this question. Can I expand on that, or is that enough? You can always ask in an interview, how much time do we have left? Do I have time to add something or not? So don't think that you don't have that sort of power or that sort of influence in an interview, because you absolutely do. But my biggest recommendation for an interview, and I'll get to that question in 1 second, but my biggest recommendation for an interview is that you think of some examples in your career, in your life, where you've done something that you're very proud of, a piece of work or an accomplishment, something that was very difficult. Maybe there was conflict or things went wrong and you overcame it, and what you learned. Think about some of these examples and have them ready so that when you're in the interview, you do have things to rely on. And then at CBC, we always are going to ask you questions about the news. We're going to ask you questions about journalism. And so you want to be prepared to answer those about the place you're applying. So I'll turn to this question. What would be the best skills, attributes, or experience to highlight in order to demonstrate I'm perfect for the position? Well, I would encourage you to look at some of the journalism that we do. So I would look at the journalism we're doing out of these smaller locations. And currently we have people based in Nanaimo, BC, Cranbrook, BC, Lethbridge, Alberta, Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray, Hinton, Brandon, Manitoba, Kingston, Ontario. We have people around the country already doing this work. I'd encourage you to look at the kind of work they are doing and see if that's the kind of work that you want to do and can do. And then I would highlight skills that you think would help you do that kind of work. I'd also suggest you look at that job description, and it does talk about things like critical thinking skills, initiative, problem-solving skills. You want to demonstrate that you have these skills because that's what we're looking for. I'm just going to say that we have about 10 or 15 minutes left. And usually when I say this, that's a reminder, people, please get in your questions. If you have a question that you've been holding on to and you want us to answer it, please get them in now. We have about 10 or 15 minutes. And if you want to slip a question in before we wrap up, that would be great. Now's your time. I'm just quite looking. I did get a question earlier today, a little bit about multi-platform and how much experience you need to have in all the platforms. I referenced that a little bit earlier, but I want to reiterate that. We don't expect that everybody's fully formed in all the platforms. We do provide training, but we do want to see that you have an interest or a skill in multi-platform journalism. And if you've been working primarily in one platform, show us how you've stretched, things that you've done to stretch into new platforms. So I see a new question here. Are we expected to do full package for each story? And is there a number of story targets? Sure. No, you're not expected to do a full package for every story. It would matter. It would depend on the story content. Perhaps it's a story that we feel is really a visual story. Yes, this is going to be amazing visuals. We want to do it visuals. And maybe we decide we're not doing a digital text story. That you are going to make those decisions every day with your assignment producers. Justin, there was just a second part of that question, and I'm sorry I missed it. If you don't mind popping that back when you have a moment. I just want to make sure I answered it. Oh, right. And is there a number of story target? Thank you. No, there's not a particular story target. It certainly depends on the kinds of stories you're pitching. You might pitch stories that are quick, like this is really fast, stuff's happening, and we want to do a bunch of those stories. Maybe there's some stories that need a deeper dive. We don't have targets for any of our journalists. What we do want you to be doing is showcasing stories that are telling the issues and the concerns of those communities. So we are looking for strong original journalism, and we want to see that on a consistent basis, but there's not a target. Is grassroots journalism sufficient for experience? Student journalism and smaller local independent outlets. Places where course builder gain, but not with the same recognition as CBC. Absolutely. Journalism is, at its core, is being curious, asking questions, having critical thinking, and you can do that at any type of location. So no, you don't need to have, need to have worked at one of the major broadcasters like CBC or CTV or Global or that sort of thing. You don't need that kind of experience. What we'd be looking for, Joel, is for you to be showcasing how you have done the kind of journalism we're looking for in your current experience, whether that's student or at a smaller independent location. Will there be opportunities for local stories to go on to appear on national CBC? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really we look for the journalists in those locations to pitch stories that would be of interest to a national audience. So for sure, if you're pitching a story that so say you worked with me and you were based out of Red Deer. You pitched a story that we thought was really fabulous. Your producers would go and say to the national programs, we've got this great story coming out of Red Deer. Are you guys interested? And they'd work together to make sure that you are gathering and creating a story that the national teams are interested in running. So for sure, it depends on the story, but yes. I think that's the same question that we just saw. Just pausing a little minute to see if we have any last questions coming in. Don't want to cut it off if we do have other stuff happening. If my resume includes journalism experience, I think we sort of answered this, but a lot more of other non-media professional experience transferable. Can you recommend which work experience to include? Sure. What you want to do is think about the skills we're looking for and then the work experience that you think is relevant, that you exhibited those skills. So I'm talking about we're looking for people with a lot of initiative, a lot of critical thinking. So show me some experience highlight that experience in your application that you think shows those same sort of things. Those are skills that we're really looking for. So, think that way. She's talked about, where they get out and they find people and they build relationships. Where have I shown that I can do that? And then highlight that experience for sure. Will there be opportunities to cover the elections? Well, not this one, because we won't be hiring until and people in place until after this election is over. But absolutely. We just this morning, we're talking here in Edmonton, we have a journalist based in Hinton, and we spoke with him about really connecting with the folks in Jasper about what are the main election issues that are at play for them, as the town rebuilds from the wildfires last year? So absolutely, he's working on election content right now for us, and he's in one of our bureaus. So for sure in the future, just not this one, because, and I should say the jobs close March 31st, so next Monday, so you have a week, but we wouldn't have people in place by the time the election happens on April 28th. For digital journalism, how many views do these rural reporters generally get? I don't actually have that data, and that's not one of the necessarily the metrics that we track. And this is actually leads me to a question I received earlier in an earlier session, and I think is relevant, which is, what are our measures of success? We're not necessarily looking on for clicks as a measure of success. I think of two things for measures of success. One, that you're telling original journalism that is meaningful and impactful to the community that you're in. And it's often something that other media aren't covering, or stories that haven't been heard. That's really important to us. The second is that you are building relationships and making contacts in these places. I would much rather have half of the town that you're based out of have read the story, which may be a small number, than a bunch of clicks of people who've only gone in and looked at your story for five seconds and clicked off, which is a lot of what digital metrics are. So what we want is you to be connecting with people, making meaningful relationships, and then telling stories that really matter to them. How can we attach published stories to our application? Well, certainly you could link to them. So I think that's the best way to do it. Most information is available. Most people have stories available online. I would link to that content. If you have something that's not online, I'd suggest you make your own website, to sell yourself. This is my job seeking website, and here are for example, videos and that sort of thing that you might post to that website. You want to think about, there are hundreds of people applying for all these jobs, and you want your application to be easy for me to navigate. And it's not just me looking at them, there's a team of people, but easy for us to navigate them. So you don't want us to have to look in multiple places necessarily. If you can try to keep a lot of your work to one sort of space, that would be really helpful. Should we include a reel? Absolutely. If you have a reel, include a link to your reel so that we can see your on-camera experience. If you don't have a reel, don't worry. You don't have to have a reel. Is there a various round interview process? Good question, actually. We are working through the recruitment process now, what the next steps will be. Generally speaking, our recruitment processes involve a skills test. So there's usually some kind of assignment that we ask you to do to test your journalism skills in some way. And we're working through what that exactly will be right now. And then we're working through the interview process. One of the things that's important to us right now is we recognize that there are going to be many folks who are interested in multiple jobs. And we don't want you to have to sit through, 5 or 6 or 7 interviews. It's not a really great use of your time or our hiring team's time, one each for each job. So we're finding ways to do a bit of consolidation. And we're just sorting the details about that right now. So we don't have exact details for you, but there will be various rounds of the process. So as I say, a skills test and an interview, and maybe 1 or 2 other things in there. We will certainly, though, communicate with you what those are, and you'll have adequate time to accomplish them. Will the new role be on a 90-day trial basis, or would there be a contract for full-time work? These are permanent full-time positions. They're not trials, but all new staff with CBC have a probationary period. How much will you collaborate with others sharing leads, story ideas, overcoming roadblocks? That's a great question, Neil. I would hope a lot. We have collaborative collegial newsrooms, and you will be connected to one. The only thing is that you won't be physically sitting next to them. But we really do want you working closely with your home station, your producers and your colleagues, working together to find stories, to chase stories, to make them better, in a vetting or an editing process. And so that's going to happen remotely. But we do want you working very collaboratively with your home team and with your other bureau journalists, because there's often best practices and things to share with other people who are doing the same kind of work that you are. Should we include references? That's usually a good practice on a resume, is to include references, but you do not have to. If we get to the point where we're going to need references, we ask for them from you. So you can include them, but you don't have to. What are the selection criteria? Well, I think you can, if you go to cbc.ca/work with us, you can see there's links there to the actual job postings, but we talk a little bit about the jobs, and so you can see what we're looking for, the skills and the requirements of the job. So I think perhaps we've reached the end of our questions. I'm just going to pause for just a moment in case I've missed one. Justin, Haley, Jane, I think we've reached the end. Okay, so I think that we've reached the end of questions. It doesn't mean you can't ask a question again later. 2 ways that you can connect with us. You can continue to email the email account that sent you the information about this session today. That's newsjobs@cbc.ca. If you think of a question, if you want to reconnect and you're not sure about your application or something like that, or one of the positions, don't hesitate to reach out. Send an email and we'll get back to you with further information. Secondly, you're welcome to connect directly with me. My name, as I mentioned, Stephanie Coombs, and Justin's put it up, my email address up there. I oversee Edmonton and Northern Alberta, but I am happy to connect with you questions about any of the jobs, or connect you with people who can answer more specific questions. If you decide after today's session, these jobs aren't for me, this isn't what I'm looking for, I'd encourage you to look at our current jobs board to see if there's other things that might be of interest to you. There's a link to that at our website, cbc.ca/workwithus. You can see the current jobs board there. And there's also a way to join our talent pipeline, which keeps you in the know as jobs get posted that may be more of interest to you. But at any point, if you're like, I don't know what that job is, or I'd like some more information and I don't know where to find more information, you have my email address. You can reach out to me. I like hearing from people. Don't hesitate, and I can connect you with further information. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been exciting to see so many different names come up in the comments in the chat. Really appreciate you connecting with us today, and reach out if you have further questions. Goodbye.